On this episode of Game Shack, I ask you guys, is retro arcading a fad or is it here to last? And I recap all of the week's news in retro home arcading. Coming up next. Hey everybody, it's JDV here for EvilGeniusEntertainment.com. Thank you guys for stopping by the Game Shack. It really does mean a lot to us here at the EGE. And it's been a busy week this week in the realm of home arcading as there's a bunch of news, a lot of it not so good, but let's get to the good news first. Let's start off as we usually do now with II Arcade announcing that they will be releasing Wind Up Nights 2 today on their website. The first version of this game was downloaded more than 10 million times, so there should be a pretty strong interest in this game. II Arcade continues to put out new games every week and continues to strengthen what is already a very strong multi-cade system. Speaking of companies that put out multi-cades, AtGames has announced that Wave 4 is being delivered in big numbers in terms of their virtual pinball game. They've also announced that as soon as everyone's gotten their Wave 4, they will open up Wave 5 for pre-order. No exact timing on that yet, but I would guess that would probably be within a 2 to 4 week period. I'll let you know as soon as I hear. Also from AtGames, they've announced that they've begun delivery of their joystick trackball combo for their pinball game. Those will be delivered as usual, just sort of whoever ordered them first. I have my order in on that as well, so I hope to be receiving that pretty soon. I'm going to wait for that before I put out my review of the AtGames Legendary Pinball game. I want it to be a very inclusive review that has all of the things that you can do with the game on there, so stay tuned for that review when it comes out, hopefully in the next week or two. Sadly, that is where the good news ends this week as the specter of higher prices and shortages continue to dog this hobby. Let's stick with AtGames. They've announced that their Bit Blaster accessory is not going to be released anytime soon, and they do not have a release date for that. Again, the shortages and delays over in China are affecting that. They are also announcing the delay of delivery of their AtGames Mini Legendary unit, the Tetris branded cab. That will not be hitting people's homes until it's September now. So that is a little bit of a downer for anybody who has their pre-order in on that. I'm not sure if that means that there wasn't a lot of interest in it, and so it gets moved on the list, or there was so much interest in it that, it's going to take a while to fulfill all those orders. You can still pre-order that game or just simply order it on their website. I think it's still going for $400 plus shipping. I hope to review that unit when it comes out, but that looks like that's going to be delayed until this fall. I talked a little bit about price increases being some of the bad news in this industry, and sure enough, the Star Wars, Marvel, and Attack from Mars games are now being listed for $600 at GameStop. They had it listed for $800 briefly on their website, and I think $800 is just a bridge too far, at least for that particular product, and maybe for virtual pinball game in general. The idea of that these games could start to really raise up in prices to beyond $600 is something that is worrisome if you are in this hobby, or really an industry-wide thing if they hope to attract yet more people into it. But perhaps the worst news of the week is for MVX owners or potential owners, and that's because they have announced that they are not going to be releasing game packs for that system. Now, of course, this was something that they didn't officially say was going to be released, but they strongly hinted that it would be. At least I think that is how that worked out. And anyway, a lot of people who bought into that system expect it to be able to buy game packs because it only comes with 50 games, and a lot of those games are very fighter heavy. P-Dubs over at his site theorizes that maybe this means that they will have a second cabinet available or announced later on this year that will of course have different games, maybe hopefully a better variety of games. But for anybody who either owns this system or is looking at buying it, this is bad news. There's no real other way to sugarcoat it. All of which brings me to the main topic of this episode, and that is I'm asking you guys, do you think that retro arcade games, is this a fad, like the hula hoop? Or is this something that is going to have staying power and kind of stay with us through the coming years and even decades? Obviously right now there is an intense interest from a lot of people in the home arcade kind of product segment, but is that something that can last? My own thoughts are kind of, it's a definite maybe for me. I think that this hobby is very strongly linked to both the games available and the games that you can play, and the affordability of these cabinets. With the specter of increasing prices past the $400 and $500 mark for these cabs, I think that that would be very harmful to this nascent hobby. Because even if you own 3 or 4 and you want to own another 3 and 4, if they start to be priced above $500, even that would limit you even if you were only looking at picking up 1 or 2 cabs a year. I think that pricing really is going to have a huge factor on this going forward. Now, I don't think that the shortages that we're seeing right at this particular moment and the shipping kind of delays, those are things that will not last forever. I mean, that eventually will be smoothed out. I mean, at least you hope that would be smoothed out down the line. So I'm not so worried about that in terms of the short-term effectiveness. I'm talking truly long-term. I'm talking about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. Are people still going to be buying these home arcade units? And I think, sure, some people will absolutely still. There will always be some people interested in this. But is this something that is more generational? Like, is this just a Gen X, Gen Y type thing? Or will millennials and those younger than millennials, will they have an interest in this in 5 and 10 years? When us oldsters have sort of bought every game that we want, and you know, how many Pac-Man games can you own? Of course, a lot of us who have kids are sort of introducing, you know, our kids to these arcade machines, and they're usually pretty interested in them. But the fact remains that arcades in and of themselves are either gone or they're more adult themed, where you'll have, you know, beer like Dave & Buster's, that type of thing. And of course, with COVID, those have taken it on the chin right now too. And that's the other factor in this. Eventually COVID is going to be, well, maybe not gone, but its impact is going to be a lot less, and we will be able to hang out in public more. Once we're able to leave our homes and go socialize more, will we have the same interest level that we have right now in pinball, in arcade games, in driving games? And I think that remains to be seen as well. But I think that could actually help. I think when we are able to kind of go and visit our friends more and have our friends and people come over more, boy, it sure would be cool to show them a home arcade, wouldn't it? It's like, hey, look what I got. You know, it is a pretty impressive thing. Even if you only have like 1 or 2 games, it's still a very, very cool thing. I really think that the biggest elephant in the room is pricing. I think if they can keep the pricing, let's say, of the ALU at $500, I think that's a great price for this. If they can keep the legacy cabs, you know, priced at $400 to $350, I think that is a reasonable price going forward. So that wraps up this topic and this episode. What do you guys think? Is this something that's going to be around 5-10 years from now? Or is it something that will just kind of peter out because everybody has the units and because it won't cut across generational lines? Or no, this is something that, you know, now that it's here to stay, and we can expect to see cabinets come out every single year the way that we see new cars come out every single year. All right, well, I hope you liked this show, and if you did, please give me a thumbs up on the way out. It really does help us. Love each other, and until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah! Ladies and gentlemen, the next fad in video games.
Be sure to visit EvilGeniusEntertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.